Well, good morning, everyone. Everything rolling? Almost rolling. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Music City. It's so good to see your smiling faces on Thanksgiving week. Yay! So for most of us, that means we're not working for a day or two this week, so that's always a great thing. So it's a great reason for us to be joyful today. A lot of us are going to see family and friends this week. Even more reason to be joyful today. So let's get our energy up. We're going to start with a couple of songs today. We are one and blessing to the world. Let's all stand up and sing them together. One with God and one with each other. Everyone we meet is our sister and brother. You be you and I'll be me. We're all members of one family. In harmony, harmony. We are a part of all that we see. One with God and one with each other. Everyone we meet is our sister and brother. You be you and I'll be me. We're all members of one family. Live in harmony, harmony. We are a part of all that we see. Now that we got our energy up, we're going to get it focused. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. Spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing Please be seated. All right, and if we've got any kids, young or old, doesn't matter. We have any children, you can go with Stephanie. You are dismissed.
Good morning, Unity of Music City. Let's begin this portion of our service by taking a deep, centering breath. Today's centering statement is, inclusion is my expression of oneness. We are all connected. To have an inclusive mindset means that we ensure that everyone is invited to contribute, to be seen, be heard, be valued, and be counted in a way that is safe and makes sense for them. When we are inclusive of others, we respect and appreciate the wealth of knowledge and experience that others bring to the table. As we embrace this inclusive mindset, it becomes easier to recognize the oneness that we share and to celebrate our differences. On the outside, our differences may be more prevalent, but on the inside, we are truly all the same. Oneness is a journey that begins with diversity, passes through inclusion, and lives in belonging. As we travel on our journey to oneness, let's strive to honor the diversity we see, make the effort to include everyone, and empower everyone to feel like they belong. Please repeat these affirmations after me. I take comfort in knowing that I am a part of something larger than myself. I take comfort in knowing that I am a part of something larger than myself. There is no separation from me and the rest of the world. There is no separation from me and the rest of the world. I love all life just as all life loves me. I love all life just as all life loves me. And so it is.
And so it is. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to say a big hello to everyone watching the streaming service. Your presence is felt too here. Thank you for being here. I usually try to do this once a month, so I want to go over our who we are statements. And these are statements that we took a long, hard look at last year and at who we wanted to be when we grew up as a spiritual community. And we are always in the process of growing up as a spiritual community. There are 3 of them. The first one is that Unity of Music City is an affirming interfaith spiritual community, meaning that we recognize, accept, and affirm who you are, no matter how you identify in the world. And we encourage a heart-guided exploration of the truth in all faith traditions. You are in a judgment-free zone. Number 2, we honor the unique path of each person's spiritual journey, meaning that no matter what path led you here, you have something to bring to the table, and that your experience and your wisdom can only enhance our collective spiritual experience. And lastly, by doing all of these things, we strive to be a presence that contributes to the well-being of all, meaning that everything that we do has a focus on making this world a better place than it was. So thank you all for coming today. Sherry, do we have any announcements?
We do. Good morning. Oh, that sounded tired. Good morning. That was better. I like it. Okay, our youth program is open to all youth. If you have a young person who would like to share in some playful, spiritual, uplifting activities, please see Stephanie. Also, we are looking for monthly volunteers for the youth ministry. Please speak with Stephanie if the youth program speaks to you. A Thanksgiving Eve service will be held at 7 p.m. this Wednesday, November the 23rd. What time is that? 7 p.m. Okay, because it wasn't on this. Just checking. Friendsgiving at 7 p.m. on the Thanksgiving Eve service. Friendsgiving hosted by Crystal Lyles this Thursday, that's the 24th, set up here at the church. 10 a.m. We're serving at 2 p.m. Movies and activities for kids of all ages. Call or text with questions to RSVP and sign up to bring a side dish. Crystal's number is, write it down, 615-852-1463. There will be a full moon gathering December 7th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. here at Wren Road. Bring a chair, a drum, crystals, sage, or whatever calls to you. We'll build the fire. A meditative and contemplative, it says service, but it's not a service. It's just a meditation time. December the 11th at 1 p.m. in person here at Wren Road, a meditation on twin hearts. Love, donation, welcome. Okay? All right, that's it for this morning. So let's sing some more.
Well, I'm going to do a little teaser for something that's going to happen to begin next month. You know, traditionally, we've always had a Christmas charity that we've contributed to for our Christmas giving campaign and our end-of-year giving campaign. Well, we're going to have one for December that is the most relaxing, comfortable way that you could ever give back to your spiritual home. We're not going to do a Christmas charity this year. We're going to do a Christmas charity this year. So I'll just put that out there for you as a little teaser. More to come later. So okay, let's sing. All right, yes, please. All right, everybody sing. We're going to do the monthly mantra. We are blessed to have one another, a chosen family. Together we stand. Here we go. and family, together we stand. We are blessed to be sister and brother. We are blessed. We are blessed. We are blessed. We are blessed. Thank you so much. Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving week. As we settle in for our meditation time this morning, I want to give you a little practice that you may choose to engage with, if you so choose. If you take your left hand and hold it as a cup, as if you're going to hold as much water as you can possibly hold. With your thumb close into your fingers just like that. And then take your right hand as a cup and hold it right on top. You can hold that right there about your solar plexus. In yoga, this is called the Samputa Mudra. Samputa is a word that means treasure chest. And if you just want to hold that as we ease into meditation, you may close your eyes if you wish. Settle into your chair. Maybe let the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Lower your shoulders. A mudra is designed to direct the natural flow of life energy. You may begin to feel heat, energy tingling your palms. This is a direction of energy designed to remind you of the essence of who you are. Deep within your being is your true self, the treasure, the divine. And this energy helps us trust our own intuitive voice. Rely on the wisdom we can tap into that comes from someplace bigger than ourselves. And then we can use that guidance to speak with integrity. And all of our expressions can begin from this secret place of the Most High, the Holy of Holies, the core of your essence, the treasure that you are. And as we settle into a few moments in the silence, let that energy that you are directing in your hands move through your entire beingness. And remind you that you don't just stand on sacred ground. You are the sacred. In the silence. trust my intuition. I follow sacred guidance. I live from a core of beingness that is itself sacred. And I know that this energy of who I am exists because I can feel it. I can feel it in my hands. And as I open my hands and feel the coolness of the air, I know that the treasure remains. I know that the core of who I am cannot be destroyed. And I know I am so blessed. I am so blessed. Did you feel it? Did you feel the energy? I got all my back row Baptist here today with me. That back end is all filled up. I used to say that, I don't know if you all know about the skirmer horn, if you know much about the logistics of the skirmer horn, the Symphony Center downtown. So it's kind of like this uber tech kind of auditorium, and they have the ability, all the seats that are on the main floor, they are on a motor, and the front of the floor opens up and the first section goes down and then slides back underneath the floor, and the second section comes up, slides down, goes underneath the floor, and they can turn it into a dance floor in about 20 minutes with no chairs there. I want to build a church where after everyone gets settled, we can just get rid of the front row and move all the other seats forward. I think it would fly. I think I could sell those architectural plans to about 5,000 ministers across the country. Thank you for being here today. It's the beginning of Thanksgiving week, and we want to continue our talk about gratitude. We're talking about gratitude of the Spirit this week. And just as a reminder, we've been in this series all month long. In the first Sunday of November, we talked about gratitude for the life of the body and the physical existence. And then we had our full moon gathering, which was a part of that gratitude. Last week we talked about gratitude for the life of the mind and that whole beingness that we are, the mind and the heart. And then this week we're talking about the life of the Spirit. We'll continue on because this Wednesday, as Sherry told us, at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a Thanksgiving Eve service. It's going to be a contemplative service. It's going to be, I think, a very special time for us to come together and get our minds in a good space for whatever the next day may hold for you. And so it won't be live streamed. I did get that question earlier, so those of you who are watching via Facebook Live or YouTube or Stitch, aren't we on Stitch too? Switch? Twitch? What is it? Twitch. Yeah, I have no idea. I just aged 10 years right in front of your eyes, right there. So we're on that too. We're so sorry that won't be available. It's going to be a much more intimate kind of gathering, not the kind of thing that really plays well over video. But we hope that you will join us for about an hour to spend a little time focused on gratitude and preparing us for the next day. And then, of course, next Sunday, we'll conclude our series with gratitude for the life of interwoven community. There is a reason why we come together and we share with each other, right? We could just all do this at home. And I know some Sundays, some of y'all do. I'm kidding. I just turned into like Baptist guilt-inducing minister. It's like, you do you, boo, you do you, right? So at any rate, we'll come together next week and be grateful for that. Of course, this whole series, we've had a couple of quotes. We've been leading the guidance of our Eckerts, our Eckert twins, Eckhart Tolle, acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. And that is such a vital truth, that we have to keep repeating it because it's so basic and it's so pure that really letting it soak in means you have to just keep hearing it over and over again. Man, it gets truer to me every time I see it. And then, of course, Meister Eckhart, if the only prayer you said was thank you, that would be enough. Just thank you. Thank you for all of it. So on this particular Sunday, as we head into Thanksgiving week, I think it is only appropriate that we begin by honoring the indigenous peoples who were the first inhabitants of this land. And so, of course, native cultures in the Americas date back thousands of years. And yet, once European colonization began, there were only about 65 years between the time when native tribes had complete ownership of the land we now know as Tennessee and the time of their forced removal from all areas of that land. 65 years. We upended thousands of years of civilization. In fact, the proclamation of 1763, you know me, I got to get a little bit of history in here somewhere. The proclamation of 1763 reserved, of course that was a British colonial proclamation, reserved all of present-day Tennessee for native tribes into perpetuity. And it, of course, is just one of the dozens of treaties that were broken or ignored in order to take ownership of the land. So here at 826 Wren Road, we are on land that was previously used, historically used, as either a home or hunting grounds or travel-through grounds or nomadic movement or whatever for the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Yuchi people. I love this map. This actually comes from, there's a website, and you can just type in how to find what native land I live on. And there's a website out there that has an interactive map that you can put your address into, and it'll tell you what indigenous tribes are on the very ground that you live on. And I like this map here because we as Westerners tend to think, and if you got your education in the United States, you're of a Western mindset, all right? As Westerners, we like to think of boundaries as being these very absolute things. Well, here's where Georgia begins and Tennessee ends, right? There's the line, we just crossed it. But the native people did not think that way. It was very common for several tribes to overlap on land because nobody owns the land. Oh, you hunt here? We do too. Fine, right? And so keep that in mind. We'll bring the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Yuchi people back in a few moments to give us a little guidance, but I wanted to first begin by honoring that. So this week, many of us are going to face a table that looks something like this. And we started this gratitude experience by talking about the physical experience that we have. And that is the life that we experience through our five senses. And of course, when we sit down at the Thanksgiving table, how many people, be honest now, how many of you have ever taken a picture of a Thanksgiving table before anybody sat down? Yes, just about anybody in here, because it's visually pleasing. We've set it up, we've set the stage just right. And then that smell all day long, it's cooking, right? And I can smell that picture right there. And we can, the taste of it, right? I can taste, oh my gosh, I am like a total, like, white foods person. No, that doesn't mean white person food. It means white foods person. Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing. That's it. That's all I need on my plate right there. And so it tastes good, all of this. But of course, that physical experience goes beyond what we experience in this body. It also includes all of nature and what we see out there in the universe that we are a part of. It reminds me of, there's a poem by Emily Dickinson that says, "The brain is wider than the sky, for put them side by side, and one the other will contain with ease, and you beside." In other words, this brain is so intense that I can conceive of the entire sky, and I can put you in there too. At the same time, the brain is bigger than the sky. By the way, that is etched on the wall at the library on Vanderbilt University. This idea of what we're able to do with our mind and how intense it is. So this sensory world that we live in that has all of this beauty that we experience also has skunks, right? My favorite. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you take it home there. Yeah. If you've ever, I know you have, I know everybody in here has smelled a skunk before, you know, yes. And it is intense. It is where the word acrid comes from, right? It gets in your nose, you can't get it out. One time when I lived over on Central Pike, I smelled a skunk. I just let my dogs out to pee at night. I smelled a skunk. I thought, I got to get the dogs in before they get into that. I didn't realize until Sebastian had come in the house that he was the one who had been sprayed. And it was a weeks-long endeavor to fully get rid of that smell, right? Because this world that we live in that has all of this beauty also has things that aren't pleasant. We smell things that aren't pleasant. We see things that aren't pleasant. We've seen scenes of war and famine and flooding, the aftermath of hurricanes, the aftermath of tornadoes, floods. If we're filled by a Thanksgiving dinner, we've also felt hunger, right? And so there is this contrast that exists in this physical existence. And then last week we talked about the mind, and we talked about how the mind itself contains both of these, the potential for the monkey mind, the potential for the monk mind, that we can be noisy and anxious and controlling. We can be busy about the doingness of life. But that same mind space can also be shifted. It can alter over into a more calm, quiet, reflective, contemplative certainty, relaxation, beingness. Right? Because we know the mind, as we learned last week, the mind is more than just the brain. The brain is a thing we can touch. We don't want to. Don't touch your brain right now, okay? But it is something that is physical that we can encounter. It is nerve endings. But the mind is also our heart and our emotions, what we think of as our being for a long time. This is who I am. This is my personality. These are the emotional responses I have. And we often, for a long time, believe that this is our true self. We can even be a little deluded into thinking, this is who we are. This is who I am. It's just who I am. And then last week, we ended with this quote from the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not going to read the whole thing again here to you, but I want to focus on the beginning. We learned that mind is alterable because when meditation is mastered, the mind becomes unwavering. Like the flame of a lamp in a windless place. In the still mind, in the depths of meditation, the self reveals itself. That's where I want to focus today. Who is this self? Who is this revealing self? How do we find it? We don't. It reveals itself. That beingness that we truly are reveals itself to us. It's not hiding from us. It's not something that we have to work and work and work to find. It's waiting. It's waiting to reveal itself to us. All we have to do is prepare ourselves for the awakening. So today we're focused on gratitude for the spiritual journey, the spiritual experience that we have in this lifetime. We're gratitude for our spirit, for our higher self, the self with a capital S, the divine presence that I am and you are, the essence, the aura, the beingness, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. We know that this element of us, this space of us, is different because in this space there are no skunks. In this space, there is no good and there's no bad. There's no up, there's no down. There are no desires, there are no wants. We want for nothing. There are no needs, there's no pain, there's no hurt, there's no rejection, there's no acceptance because we don't need it. Right? None of those things. The things that cause a push and pull, the things that bring some pain either to my body or my spirit, none of those things exist in this part of us, so we know that it is different. Now, early in our spiritual awakening, we may resist this idea. I did. Who wants a life with no ups? That's what I thought. Well, I'd rather have the downs if I can't, so I can have the ups. I'd rather have the valleys so that I can keep the mountains. And I missed the point. I missed the point completely. Because this physical life doesn't change. I change in response to my physical life. The way that I perceive it changes. The way that I begin to understand how my unchanging spirit impacts my changeable life. That is what happens in that space. Spiritual awareness does not erase the life of the physical self or the mental self. It lights it up. It puts experience into a proper perspective. It allows for easy release of expectations and assumptions. It doesn't mean you'll never feel those in your mind again. It doesn't mean that you'll never have a human experience again. You will, and you'll have a human response, right? It just allows for a much easier release of those expectations. We stop having to be right so much because we understand that in the truest place of who we are, there is no right or wrong, right? It doesn't matter. And we see being wrong not as an indictment of our worth, because a lot of times when we're in our physical self, our humanness, our person, we hate to be wrong because somehow we think it says something about who we are. I am somehow broken. I am somehow incomplete. I am somehow unworthy. I'm not as smart as I want you to think I am. Right? I don't have it all together. Somebody's going to see me as being at loose ends. So what? Because when we're in the spirit self, we understand that being wrong is not an indictment of us, but it's another reflection in which to see more clearly the expansion of our awareness. That's all it is. Thank you, God. One more opportunity to see more clearly. the expansion of my awareness. We relax a little bit in that sacred space because we know that what is changeable doesn't matter, and what matters is not changeable. What is changeable doesn't matter, and what matters isn't changeable. A Course in Miracles says it this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, and herein lies the peace of God. That's in the introduction, and it is introduced, these 3 sentences are introduced as this completely summarizes the entire Course in Miracles. This is all of it. This is what it is. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So what is it that is real? What is it that cannot be threatened? It's not my body. My body can be threatened. It's not my mind. I can feel a threat to my mind. Right? I can have experiences that have an impact on my mental view of the world. We know that that's not what is real. As Eckhart Tolle says in A New Earth, right? And many, many other teachers. Mooji says this, almost any teacher of non-dualism says the same thing. If I can observe it, it's not who I am. Right? So in a very simple way, if I can observe my hand, that's not who I am. We know this. When Tom sacrificed the tip of his finger to this church and cut it off, we didn't lose one bit of Tom. Not one bit of Tom was lost. If something happened to my arm, not one bit of me would be lost. So I know that's not me, if I can observe it. And when I can observe my emotional responses, I know that's not me either. Because I'm the being back here of watching it happen. I'm the being who's observing it and taking it in. The journey we each took and are taking together to this truth is the great journey of spiritual awakening. And it has been a journey for me that even though I didn't go anywhere, that's the paradox of it, it's not a journey to anywhere. It's a journey that can take time. We have to sit with it to fully accept and understand. So let's honor our geographical ancestors and let them help show the way. So the Cherokee, there are lots of theories about where the word Cherokee came from, but a commonly held theory is that the word means people of the cave country. There are several neighboring cultures that had words in their languages that sounded similar to Cherokee that mean cave country. There's also an idea that it means people of the mountains. Either one of those would be fitting and means the same thing. I don't know if you know this or not, but Tennessee has more caves than any other state in the country, right? We are the people of the cave country. And when I think about that, I think about Plato's myth of the cave. So 2,500 years ago, Plato, one of the great thinkers and philosophers who pretty much created the Western world, he passed along this story, the myth of the cave. And in the myth of the cave, he says that living in this existence is kind of like being chained inside a cave, like these people on the left, facing the back cave wall. And that behind us is a light source, and all we're seeing are the shadows of the figures moving in front of the light. Now here they do it like a puppet show. Plato didn't quite tell it that way. He just said people walking back and forth in front of the fire, in front of the light. But that the people on the left here, the people who are chained up, see the shadows on the wall and they believe that that's real. And that that's what our existence on this life is like. That we are seeing shadows, a delusion, a dream, and we say, that's real. That's what's real. And we'll name those things. And we know they're real because we saw it. You can't tell me it's not real. I saw it. I was there. And that awakening, enlightenment, or as Plato said, becoming a philosopher, which to him was the same thing. Becoming a philosopher means that you decide, I'm taking off these chains, and I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to do a 180, and I'm going to look at life from a different perspective. And I want to look for what is real. If I think that's real, what's behind it? right? What's behind it that's actually real? Very similar to Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements, where he says that we're all living a dream. This is all a dream, a delusion that we're living. It's hard to accept sometimes, especially for some of us who are more analytical, and we go, nope, hard science. I'm here. You can't tell me this table doesn't exist. I can feel it. Fine, go ahead with that. That's fine. But is there something animating life behind all of this? Is this just the shadow and the dream? Right? So at the beginning of our journey, we often start from sitting inside the cave of our own limited understanding, our own limited awareness. All we can see is what we can see. And our desire for spiritual awakening begins here. Now here's the paradox. I love this. I was thinking about this yesterday, and it started, do you ever tie your brain up in knots to the point where you're like, I have no idea where I'm at now, right? So yesterday I did this with this. If, from that place in the cave, the desire for spiritual awakening begins, and if the essence that I truly am is a place of no desire, then perhaps in this life, this body and this mind and this ego are necessary as the jump starters of my spiritual journey. It is from that place that I first desire awakening. Because in my awakened spirit, I desire nothing, right? And so we need those places of desire, the body and the mind, that to start us on this journey of self-discovery and awakening, in order to reach the place where no desire exists, we have to desire to do so. What a paradox, as all life is. So we don't need to push away the ego self. I've talked about this before. We give the ego a really hard time. You know what? The ego serves its purpose. Our mind, our body, not our ego as in narcissism. That's a whole different thing, right? So we don't need to push away the ego self or the body or the mind, because we learned last week, of course, what we resist persists. The more I try to push away the yammerings of my mind or the needs of my body, the more that they're going to show up, flare up in my life, right? So all we need to do is use those as impetuses for our spiritual awakening. And much of the early awakening process is partly to just awaken, open, make receptive these experiential bodies we animate. There's a part of the spiritual journey that happens in our mind, that happens in our body. That's why we did take a yoga class. That's why we get body work done, right? Because we know that this is a system that works together. I noticed when I looked at this, does that cave opening look like an eye to you? Yes. It looks like an eye, and that may be what it's meant to be. I first saw it and I went, that's a person sitting in a cave. But it looks like an eye, and it is through these physical eyes that I first see a joy I want to know, right? It is through this mind that I first encounter a peace that I want to make my home. And so those parts of my experience become important. These desires drive us to say, I wonder what's outside the cave. I wonder what I could see, what I could be if I could remove these chains and do that 180. If I could see life from a different perspective, if I could remember who I am. So from inside that cave of personal experience, we begin to desire something more. The Shawnee people are people of warmth or people of the south wind. That's what Shawnee means. In one Shawnee tale, there is a deity named Sawaj that is the deity of the south wind. So when I light incense, when we have our full moon gatherings, we call in the four directions in different ways each time. When I light incense, I started this practice a long, long time ago, and now it's become so much a part of who I am. We'll pretend this is an incense stick. It's become so much a part of who I am that I don't think I can light incense without doing it anymore. And so I start in the north, and that's the north right there, and I light the incense, and I say, to the north and the earth. And I make a fist with my hand, because that's the earth. It's rock solid, right? It's right there. It's underneath me. To the north and the earth. And then I turn to the east, and I say, to the east and the air. To the south and the fire. To the west and the water. And then I make a little infinity symbol with my incense, and I say, as above, so below and within. And it's become a centering practice that's so important to me because it immediately centers me. It's like Pavlov, right? It's my Pavlovian bell right there. And it just immediately centers me because I've been doing it. And that south and the fire, right? It is the fire that comes from that south wind, that warm wind that drives us to explore our spiritual nature. The fire is the movement of spirit in our lives. At the beginning of this year, I did a series on the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water. And when we talked about fire, we looked at the way that fire is seen as cleansing, fire is seen as holy. In the Christian scriptures, the fire of the Holy Spirit will come on, the Holy Spirit will come on you with tongues of fire. In the book of Acts, we got Buddha over here with a fire. Fire is the symbolism of creation and destruction and transformation. I almost brought my Nataraja, my dancing Shiva, inside a ring of fire with me today, because Shiva, of course, is the destroyer, Shiva the destroyer. And that is seen as a very important element of spiritual development in Hinduism and in a lot of other parts. We have to destroy the ego. We have to destroy the old self. We have to destroy what doesn't work for us, right? And then we dance inside that fire. When I did that talk, I talked about 3 stages of human interaction with fire over the course of time. This is anthropology. You had history before, now we get anthropology. So anthropologist and ethno-scientist, I suppose that's a term, I just made it up if it's not true. They have identified 3 kind of big eras of human interaction with fire. The first one they call the opportunistic period. It was about 1.5 million years ago in Africa where the earliest humans sprung up. They sprung like Tigger. Yeah, sprung. They sprung up, and those earliest humans saw fires that had already existed, maybe from a lightning strike or the activity of a volcano or something of that nature. And they learned over time to see that as an opportunity. I can stretch this fire. I can keep this fire going if I feed it a certain kind of fuel, right? And then they moved into the next stage, which is about 40,000 to 400,000 years ago, and that was the stage where humans had the ability to start a fire. We learned what flints do, and we could make a spark, and we could actually start our own fire, and we could begin to cook, and it began the time when we culturally began to gather around each other. We began to create a modern sense of culture, which is still, to this day, gathered around the kitchen, right? And then the third level was where humans learned to use and control fire in a big way. So anyone who works in forestry will tell you that every now and then you got to have a controlled fire, right? You need to burn off some stuff to actually have the forest be healthy and recover in a kind of way that's healthy for all of the beings that live there. On the spiritual level, of course, we first have the opportunistic situation with spirit. Oh, I'm not really thinking about it, but oh my gosh, there's a lightning strike of spiritual understanding that happened over here. Or there's this volcanic eruption of spiritual emotion that happens over here. It's the reason why I got saved at church camp every year between 1974 and 1982, right? It was an opportunistic fire that lit right then. And I was ready because I had been out breaking the camp rules all week long. So I was primed for guilt in that big last revival service that we had. And then, of course, we move into the place where we have the ability to start our own fire a little bit. We know that I know now that if I can just center myself, I'll be better. I'll be okay. It'll be fine. And that third level, we finally start to impact our world. I can have a controlled fire. I can light a fire of spirit in the world around me. So we have to have that fire to wake us up. As many of you know, Mooji is one of my teachers, in my lineage of spiritual learning. And this is my favorite quote of his. Step into the fire of self-discovery. This fire will not consume you. It will only consume what you are not. You don't have to be afraid of this spiritual journey. You're not going to lose any part of what makes you unique. You don't have to lay down your personality, right? You can step into that fire. It will not destroy anything. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. So let it go. And then we move to the Yuchi people. I picked this picture because I wanted to remind all of us that these are not dead people. These are people who are alive, and their culture is alive, and they exist in our world, right? The Yuchi, their name comes from their language. They speak a language called Yuchian, which is unique among native tribes. And so we kind of blanketly refer to that group of people as the Yuchi. They call themselves Soyaha. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly or if they do a silent T or whatever, but Soyaha. And that means children of the sun. So the cave people got a fire of understanding and became children of the sun. The sun, of course, is a big fire. And for many of our ancestors, it was the closest they could come to understanding the idea of God. They knew that this life-giving light in the sky was powered by something bigger than themselves, and so they worshipped it because it's bigger than I am, I'll worship it. This idea of the sun, a huge ball of fire living millions of miles away but impacting us here is kind of like the beginning of our spiritual awakening and understanding. And so when we first begin taking that idea in, we're like this man on the cliff here. We first encountered this sun of spiritual awareness, spiritual awakening. And we see it as something off in the distance. This golden, shining truth of our beingness is something far away that we must strive to achieve. And so we begin our journey. We engage in this kind of lifelong spirit quest. Okay, I see it. I can see it now. I know what I want. I want to live in the light of the sun. That's what I want. And sometimes it feels as futile as that man saying, I'm going to walk to that sun right there. I know in the early days of my spiritual journey, I began thinking, awakening is so far off. I'm just awake enough to see how asleep I am. Right? Awakening is so far off. And sometimes we start to think that the divine is so massive and so obscure and so distant that we'll never get there, but we keep feeling its warmth, and we keep seeking out ways to have it shine on us, and we keep striving to understand it, to keep trying to seek it in the right way, making sure we meditate the right way, making sure we believe the right way, still so certain that there must be a right way. Because if there was a right way, I could just open myself up to it. And I haven't found it yet. Let me keep finding. Let me go to another workshop. Let me read another book. Right? Let me hear another preacher. Let me do something, because I must not be doing it the right way. And of course, what we're seeking for is that space where right and wrong are moot. They don't even exist there. Over time, the meditation that stills the mind and the body and settles us into deep quietness, in that space we begin to understand that our very striving troubles the waters. That awakening becomes like trying to see a fish beneath the surface, but we keep gunning the outboard motor and making wake. Because I'm trying. And we remember that the point of stillness is not to use it to go searching for ourself, but to let it create the space where the self will reveal itself to us. The divine will reveal itself to us. And so we start to slowly experience something more like this. We begin to realize that that light is within us, the fire is within us, the sun is within us, and we start to understand that the journey wasn't a journey at all. It felt like it. It has aspects that still make the metaphor work, right? We can still talk about our spiritual journey. We're not saying something wrong. I went for years, we went through a little period in New Thought where we became the language police. right? Don't say, affirm that 1,000 times and see what you get. You know, and here's the thing, let that go. Let that, let that shit go, right? Let it go. Because there's no right, there is no wrong. And so here's the thing, we can still talk about a journey, even if it's not really a journey. It's just an opening up. It's just an understanding. We've still been on a journey in that process, haven't we? My mind and my body and my ego have been on a journey. That's the journey I've been on, right? This man didn't walk to the sun. He sat in stillness on the mountain and recognized the light of his own being, the warmth and the brilliance of pure presence, the pure divine essence that is who he is. And we began to realize from that space that in reality we are nothing but the light. Our truest self, our divine presence, is that I am and you are, that realness, that essence, that divine spark, that energy, the oneness, the place where we're connected. And it can't be threatened. It can't feel pain. It can't lose. It has nothing to gain. It doesn't need to be successful. It doesn't need to make money. Your body might still need you to make money. But that space doesn't need anything. Doesn't need anything. When we first become aware of this, the joy and the peace are so immense that we kind of want to stay there. And maybe we even kind of bliss out for a while. Right? We go to a place, I'm just going to sit here in the bliss. And sometimes when life calls us back to the physical reality that we all exist in on this planet, we might feel like we failed a little bit. Well, I felt awakening, and I lived over here in this, but now I'm over here having to water the plants. And now I'm over here having to go to work and do this, and I got to let the dogs out. Right? And I've got to get back into a physical reality, and we might feel like we failed or we lost something, or maybe if we've been a little blissed out for a while and we kind of stop, we have to go back to being rational human beings, maybe people will think I'm inconsistent. Maybe people will think it wasn't a real thing, that I'm just one of those flaky spiritual people who's up and down and up and down and up and down. People will think, oh yeah, there she is in that spiritual phase again. People will say, screw them. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Forget them, right? Forget them. We all go through phases. The moon goes through phases. We all go through phases. Ride that wave. Ride it. It's taking you one bit closer to the shore, right? There are waves out in the middle of the ocean moving toward the shore. Rode that wave, got a little closer in. Rode that wave, got a little closer in. Our egos sometimes get involved and says, you know, maybe you should stay away from that spiritual stuff for a while because what will people think if you get all weird? Let them think. Let them think whatever they need to. But you know what? Here's the thing. No matter how weird we get, no matter how blissed out we get, it keeps calling to us. We can't unsee our awakening, right? We might go through times where we're hanging out with more practical people or we have to be around family. Not all of you are going to be as spiritually woo-woo weird as you are on a normal basis in front of your family on Thursday. Yes, you're going to shut some of that down. Yes, she would. Good for you. Some of us are going to shut some of that down, right? I don't wear a mala to work every day. Some days I do, but not every day. Because if I went full bore spiritual on those folks, oh my gosh, right? It's not that I'm hiding anything, it's that I have to live and go work in a more practical world. But we can't stay away for long because we've seen our divine essence, the divine presence that we are, and it keeps calling us home. What is it calling? Is it calling our body? Is it calling our mind? It's calling our attention. It's calling our awareness. Because the home you're going to is the essence you already are, and the more we sit in it, the more we become it. And the more we become it, the more we can move through the world as it, remembering who we are. We no longer have to work quite so hard to quiet the mind and still the body. We can do it anywhere. In a meeting, at work, in the car. Be careful about that in the car thing. But you can. You can remember who you are. We can feel that essence of who we are. And this remembering who we are allows us to be present as compassion in the face of anger and as mercy in the face of injustice. We can be present as love in the face of fear and as non-judgment in the place of criticism. I don't know about you, but sometimes family meals like Thanksgiving need for me to remember that I can be non-judgment in the face of criticism. Because you remember that who you truly are cannot feel wrath or fear or worthlessness. Who you truly are cannot be belittled or ignored or rejected. I'm not dismissing our mental and emotional and ego self that feels the pain of those things. It's real pain. We feel it in these outer bodies. But we are also, and first and foremost, the spiritual being that engages with none of that. And as we understand this true nature, the physical self and the mental self begin to reflect the light of who we are. And those aspects of our person stop being a cave holding a secret fire and become reflectors of the great sun spirit that is the essence of you. It starts showing up in my physical self, in my practical world, in my realistic nature. We no longer have to hide inside the spirit or hide the presence inside of us. We now recognize it is the essence and the engine of all the ways that we express in this world. On the way to church this morning, Nikki and I were listening to India Ari in the car. And I almost thought, I wonder if I could get Ryan to do this song really quickly. He's done it before. The song, I am light, I am light, I am light. I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I'm not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I'm not the mistakes I've made. I'm not any of the things that have caused me pain or others pain. I'm not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. I'm not the color of my eyes. I'm not the skin on the outside. I'm not my age. I'm not my race. My soul inside is all light. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light. Namaste.
Thank you, Reverend Deb. Thanksgiving is my favorite time of year because of this. You know, we get to be reminded. Who is that visiting us? Somebody's showing up right now. So easy for us to be grateful at this time of year. And Thanksgiving is my favorite time of year because of the gratitude. It reminds us. And it really hurts my feelings when they go from Halloween to Christmas. And it's like, hello, where is the Thanksgiving here? Because that's my favorite time of the year. So I'm going to encourage you to do two things this week. Number one, if you are privileged enough to be with family and friends this week, I want you to take just a moment while you're in the middle of everything, all the people, all of the energy, all of the talking, just take a second or two just to be quiet and look around the room and be grateful for everyone that you're with. Be grateful for all of these people that surround you and give the love back to you that you give to them. And second of all, if you don't have the opportunity to be around family and friends, come here. Come here for Friendsgiving. You're going to start at noon, is that right?
I'm going to start setting up about 10.
Okay.
We have games,
Setup is at 10.
movies, karaoke, a selfie booth.
There is no reason to be alone on Friendsgiving. So you can come here and feel the love. So with that, let's take just a moment to be grateful for the spiritual community that we have and the ways that we can give back. There is the QR code for PayPal. You can give through PayPal. The blue vase there is in the back for your paper donations. You can always sign up for Amazon Smile and the Kroger Rewards card. So let's take just a moment to sing our Thanksgiving. Sing Thank You, God. Let's all stand, and Sherry, will you lead us in the prayer for protection?
I will. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you next week. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.